the impossible repair. Marcus Chin wiped the grease from his hands onto his already stained work pants and stepped back to admire his handiwork. The mining drill's hydraulic system hummed smoothly now, no longer making that grinding sound that had kept the night shift workers awake for 3 days straight. On the distant mining colony of Corvin 7, small victories like this were all that kept the human workers sane. The colony sat on the edge of Zytharian Empire territory, a massive operation that extracted rare minerals from the planet's crust. Humans had been working here for almost 5 years now, ever since the trade agreement between Earth and the Zytharian Empire opened opportunities for skilled workers. Marcus had jumped at the chance. Back on Earth, he was just another mechanical engineer struggling to find work. Here, his ability to fix things with whatever materials were available made him invaluable. The Zytharians were a proud species, standing nearly 7 feet tall with scaled skin that shimmered in shades of blue and silver. Their eyes were large and luminous, adapted for seeing in low light, and their society valued strength, honor, and tradition above all else. They were also facing a war that was slowly grinding them down. The Kashari swarm had been pushing into Zytharian space for 2 years now. Marcus had seen the news reports, watched the grim faces of Zytharian soldiers returning from the front lines. The Empire was holding but barely. Every advantage mattered. Marcus was cleaning up his tools when the communication panel on the wall chirped. He almost ignored it, assuming it was another routine maintenance request. But the panel chirped again, then again, with an urgency that made him pause. He crossed the workshop and pressed the acceptance button. The face that appeared on the screen made his breath catch. It was a Zytharian officer, her scales a deep sapphire blue, with the insignia of the Imperial Guard on her uniform collar. Marcus Chin, human engineer? Her voice was formal, clipped. That's me. Is there a problem with one of the mining units? You will report to Transport Bay 7 immediately. You have 20 minutes to gather your tools. A shuttle is waiting. Marcus blinked. Wait, what? Where am I going? The Imperial Palace. You have been summoned by High Command. Do not be late. The screen went dark. For a long moment, Marcus just stood there trying to process what had just happened. The Imperial Palace was on Zythar Prime, the homeworld, 3 days away by standard transport. Why would they possibly need a human mechanic who specialized in mining equipment? He grabbed his toolkit, the worn case that had followed him from Earth and contained every tool he'd collected over the years. Whatever this was, it had to be serious if they were sending a shuttle just for him. The journey to Zythar Prime gave Marcus plenty of time to worry. The shuttle crew wouldn't tell him anything, just that his skills had been requested for a matter of imperial importance. He spent the 3 days reading everything he could access about Zytharian technology, military equipment, and recent war developments. When the shuttle finally descended through Zythar Prime's atmosphere, Marcus pressed his face to the viewport like a child. The Imperial Palace complex sprawled across an entire mountain range, its towers reaching toward the sky like crystalline spears. The architecture was breathtaking, all flowing lines and integrated technology that seemed to grow organically from the stone itself. The shuttle landed on a private platform, and Marcus was immediately escorted by 4 Imperial guards through corridors that made him feel impossibly small. The walls were decorated with battle standards from wars spanning thousands of years. Holographic displays showed current tactical situations at the front lines. Everything screamed power, history, and desperate determination. They brought him to a massive chamber deep within the palace. The room was circular, easily 100 meters across, with a domed ceiling that displayed a real-time map of the galaxy. In the center of the chamber, surrounded by at least 30 Zytharian engineers and technicians, stood something that took Marcus's breath away. The Eternal Sentinel was legendary even among humans. It was one of the ancient war mechs, 30 feet of articulated armor and integrated weapons systems that predated the current Zytharian Empire by centuries. The technology that created the Sentinels had been lost to time, making each remaining unit irreplaceable. But this Sentinel was dying. Marcus could see it even from across the room. The mech's chest plating had a massive crack running through it, and the metal around the damage looked corroded, almost diseased. The usual blue-white glow that powered Zytharian technology was flickering, fading to a sickly gray. A Zytharian woman detached herself from the group around the mech and strode toward him. She was tall even for her species, her scales a striking silver blue that marked her as highborn. She wore combat armor rather than ceremonial dress, and her eyes held the sharp focus of someone who had seen too many battles. Marcus Chin. I am Commander Zartan, pilot of the Eternal Sentinel. Her voice was strong but carried an edge of exhaustion. Thank you for coming. I'm not sure why I'm here, Marcus admitted. I fix mining equipment, not ancient war machines. Zartan's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Desperation maybe. 6 weeks ago, during a battle with the Kashari, the Sentinel took a direct hit from a reality-warping weapon. The damage you see has been spreading since then. We have tried everything. Our finest engineers, our most ancient repair protocols, even rituals from the old texts. Nothing works. The corruption spreads. She gestured to the mech. If it reaches the core, the Sentinel dies. And with it, we lose one of our most powerful weapons against the swarm. An older Zytharian stepped forward, his scales dulled with age but his bearing still proud. I am Master Craftsman Velthor. 3 weeks ago, I reviewed technical reports from all Imperial facilities, searching for anything that might help. Your work on the Corvin 7 mining colony caught my attention. Marcus frowned. My work? I just keep old equipment running with spare parts and improvisation. Exactly, Velthor said. You performed a molecular restructuring on damaged hull plating using a resonance technique that matched the Sentinel's base harmonic frequency. It is the only potential solution we have not tried. Marcus looked at the damaged mech, then at the assembled Zytharian experts who had clearly been working themselves to exhaustion. You want me to try to fix this because I accidentally matched a frequency while patching a hull breach? We want you to try, Zartan said quietly, because we have no other options left. The weight of that statement hung in the air. Marcus swallowed hard. Okay, but I need to examine it first. No promises. They led him to the mech, and Marcus felt a strange sensation as he approached. The air around the Sentinel seemed to vibrate at a frequency just below hearing. He pulled out his scanner and began running diagnostics, comparing the readings to everything in his database. The damage was worse up close. The crack pulsed with a dark energy that his scanner couldn't properly identify. It reminded him of corrupted data, like the damage was rewriting the mech's fundamental code. Marcus walked around the Sentinel slowly, taking measurements, running his hands along the uncorrupted sections of armor. The metal was warm, almost alive. He could feel a faint thrumming through his fingertips like a heartbeat. The repair protocols you tried, Marcus said to Velthor. They were all based on restoring the original molecular structure, right? Of course. The Sentinel's alloy is unique, forged using lost techniques. We attempted to recreate those conditions. But the damage isn't responding to those techniques because it's not mechanical damage anymore. Marcus pointed to the spreading corruption. This is more like an infection. You can't fix it by replacing the damaged parts. You have to address what's causing the spread. Zaratichwan moved closer. What are you suggesting? On Corvin 7, I had a piece of equipment that kept developing microfractures. Standard repairs didn't work because the underlying stress kept creating new fractures. So instead of repairing the damage, I changed the resonance frequency of the entire structure. Made it vibrate at a frequency that redistributed the stress. He looked up at the towering mech. If I can find the right frequency, maybe I can stop the corruption from spreading. Maybe even reverse it. The assembled engineers exchanged glances. Velthor's expression was skeptical. The Sentinel's harmonic frequency is fixed by its core. It cannot be changed without destroying the entire system. Maybe not changed, Marcus said, but augmented. Harmonized with something complementary. He was already pulling out his tools, a portable resonance generator he'd built from salvaged parts. I'll need to make direct contact with the damaged section to get accurate readings. That is dangerous, Velthor warned. The corruption has active properties. It has injured 3 of my apprentices. Marcus looked at Zartan. She was watching him with an intensity that made him feel like she was measuring his worth. He thought about the war reports, the soldiers returning home broken, the slow retreat of the Empire's borders. I didn't come all this way to stand around looking concerned, he said. He approached the damaged section, scanner in one hand, the resonance generator in the other. The closer he got, the more he could feel the wrongness of the corruption, like standing next to a generator that was running at the wrong frequency. Marcus placed his hand directly on the edge of the crack. The world exploded into light and sound. It wasn't painful exactly. It was overwhelming. Marcus felt the Sentinel's entire existence pour into his consciousness. Thousands of years of battles, hundreds of pilots, victories and defeats and desperate last stands. He felt the mech's pride, its purpose, its slowly fading life force. And beneath all that he felt something else. A recognition. A resonance that went beyond frequencies and molecular structures. The Sentinel was choosing. When the light faded, Marcus found himself on his knees, his hands still pressed against the mech's armor. But the armor was no longer damaged. Where the crack had been, intricate patterns now glowed in a soft golden light, spreading across the chest plating like veins of living metal. Zartan was at his side instantly, her hand on his shoulder. "What did you do?" Marcus looked up at the sentinel, then at his own hand. The golden patterns extended onto his skin, fading even as he watched. I don't know. I just touched it and felt everything." Velthor stepped forward, his eyes wide. "The binding marks. By the ancestors, the sentinel has chosen." "Chosen what?" Marcus asked, but he already knew from the expressions around him that whatever had just happened, it was significant. Zartan helped him to his feet, her grip steady. The Eternal Sentinels were created not just as weapons but as partners. They bond with their pilots through a sacred ritual that has been passed down for generations. But they can also choose someone as a guardian, a second pilot, a balance to the primary bearer. She paused, and Marcus saw something in her eyes he couldn't quite interpret. The binding marks have appeared only 7 times in recorded history. Each time, the Sentinel recognized someone as worthy to stand beside its pilot as an equal. As a life partner. The chamber had gone completely silent. Marcus looked around at the assembled Zytharians, all staring at him with expressions ranging from shock to awe. "Wait," he said slowly. "Life partner. Do you mean?" "The human has completed the bonding of souls," an ancient Zytharian in ceremonial robes announced, her voice carrying across the chamber. "By ancient law and tradition, he is now bound to Commander Zaratuan as her destined mate." From somewhere in the crowd, someone began a rhythmic chant. Others joined in, their voices building in volume and unity. "Groom. Groom. Groom." Marcus looked at Zartan, whose expression remained carefully neutral even as her scales seemed to shimmer with colors he hadn't seen before. "So," he said weakly, "I'm guessing this counts as a successful repair?" The chanting grew louder, filling the chamber with sound. The sentinel behind them blazed with renewed light, fully restored and burning brighter than before. Marcus had come to fix a broken machine. Instead, he had somehow bound himself to a war goddess and her ancient mech through a ritual he didn't understand. His life, he realized, had just become infinitely more complicated. When machines choose hearts. The ceremonial chamber was smaller than the repair hall, but somehow felt more intimidating. Marcus sat on a bench designed for Zytharian proportions, his feet barely touching the floor, while advisors and officials debated his fate in a language his translators struggled to keep up with. The words it did catch were not particularly comforting. Unprecedented, impossible, tradition, outsider, sacred law. Zardan stood near the center of the room, her posture rigid, saying nothing. She had barely spoken to him since the binding marks appeared. Marcus couldn't tell if she was angry, shocked, or simply trying to process the situation. Probably all 3. Master Craftsman Velthor approached Marcus with something that might have been sympathy in his luminous eyes. "The debate will continue for some time. Perhaps you would benefit from understanding what has actually occurred." "That would be helpful," Marcus said. "Because right now, all I know is I fixed a mech and accidentally got engaged to a combat commander I met 20 minutes ago." Velthor settled onto the bench beside him, moving with the careful deliberation of age. The Eternal Sentinels are not merely machines. They were created during the First Age when our people still walked closely with the old powers. Each Sentinel contains a fragment of living consciousness, bound into metal and energy through means we can no longer replicate. He gestured toward where the Sentinel now stood in the adjacent hall, fully restored and radiating power. They choose their pilots, yes. But they also, on rare occasions, choose a second soul. A balance. In our history, this has always signified a partnership that transcends individual strength. 2 individuals who together become greater than either could be alone. "But I'm human," Marcus pointed out. "Doesn't that break some kind of cosmic rule?" "It breaks nothing," Velthor said quietly. "But it challenges everything we thought we understood. The Sentinels have never chosen outside our species before. That yours would do so suggests either profound wisdom or profound desperation on the part of the machine itself." An elderly Zytharian in flowing robes stood from the council circle. Her scales were pale with age, almost white, but her voice carried authority. "We have reached a decision. The bonding cannot be undone without destroying the Sentinel. Therefore, by ancient law, Marcus Chin of Earth will be recognized as guardian consort to Commander Zaratun." She turned to Marcus. "However, you are not Zytharian. You do not understand our ways. We cannot expect you to fulfill the traditional role immediately. You will be given time to learn our culture, to train with the Sentinel, and to decide if you wish to accept this bond fully." Marcus stood, trying to look more confident than he felt. And if I decide I don't want to be bonded to a giant war machine and its pilot? The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Zartan spoke for the first time since the council began. Then the sentinel will dim again. The bond, once formed, cannot be severed without consequence. We would both lose part of ourselves. Her amber eyes met his, and Marcus saw something he hadn't expected: vulnerability. This wasn't just about tradition or law. The Sentinel's choice had bound their lives together in ways neither of them had asked for. How long do I have? Marcus asked. 1 lunar cycle, the elder replied. 37 of your Earth days. During that time you will learn what it means to be guardian. At the cycle's end, you will choose whether to accept the bond or reject it. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay. I can work with that. The council dispersed, leaving Marcus and Zartan alone in the chamber. She approached him, moving with the fluid grace of a trained warrior. Up close, Marcus could see the fine patterns on her scales, the way they caught the light. I apologize, she said quietly. This was not what you came here to do. I came here to fix your mech, Marcus replied. I did that. The rest is just unexpected complications. A sound escaped Zartan that might have been a laugh. You are very calm for someone whose life has just been bound to a war machine and a warrior from an alien species. I'm good at adapting, Marcus said. It's kind of humanity's thing. Besides, freaking out won't change anything. Might as well figure out how to make it work. Something shifted in Zartan's expression. Respect, perhaps, or interest. Kolme. If you are to be guardian, you should understand what you have bonded with. She led him back to the repair hall where the sentinel stood. The mech seemed to glow brighter as they approached, and Marcus felt that same resonance he'd experienced when he touched it, gentler now but still present. The sentinel's name is Kythera, Zartan said. It means unbreaking dawn in the old tongue. It has served my family line for 6 generations. My grandmother piloted it during the siege of Karthan. My mother died in its cockpit, holding the line while civilians evacuated a burning city. She placed her hand on the mech's leg and patterns of light traced up from her touch. When I first bonded with Kythera, I spent 3 months learning to move as one with it. The sentinel reads your thoughts, your intentions, your fears. It knows you better than you know yourself. Marcus stepped closer and raised his hand to the mech. The moment his fingers made contact, he felt it, a presence in his mind, ancient and curious, examining him with interest. It wasn't invasive, more like a conversation without words. Images flashed through his consciousness. Battles fought across centuries, pilots who had given everything to protect their people, the slow fading as the corruption spread. And then his own memories reflected back to him. Long nights in workshops, the satisfaction of fixing something everyone else had given up on, the loneliness of being far from Earth, searching for purpose. The sentinel understood him. More than that, it approved. It's amazing, Marcus whispered. I can feel its history, its purpose. It's been fighting for so long. Too long, Zartan said. The war against the Kashari has lasted 2 years, but the Sentinels have been defending the Empire for millennia. They are weary. We are all weary. An alarm shattered the moment. Red lights blazed throughout the facility, and a voice echoed through the chamber. Alert! Kashari forces detected. Planetary defense initiated. All combat units report to stations. Zartuan's entire demeanor changed instantly. The vulnerable warrior who had been sharing her history vanished, replaced by a combat commander moving with deadly purpose. I must deploy. Stay here where it is safe. Wait, Marcus called. The Sentinel chose both of us, right? What if it needs both of us to fight at full strength? Zartan paused at the entrance to the mech's cockpit. You have no training. Combat in a Sentinel requires years of preparation. I'm a fast learner, and I can feel Kythera in my mind. It wants me there. For 3 heartbeats, Zartan hesitated. Then she extended her hand. Call me. But stay linked to me. Do not try to control anything yourself. Just think, just feel, and let the Sentinel guide you. Marcus grabbed her hand and let her pull him into the cockpit. The interior was nothing like he expected. Not a seat and controls but a spherical chamber filled with flowing energy. Zartan moved to the center and gestured for Marcus to take position behind her. The moment he did, the Sentinel came alive around them. The walls dissolved into transparent energy, giving them a 360-degree view of the outside world. Marcus could see the palace grounds, the city beyond, and the sky where dark shapes were beginning to descend through the atmosphere. The Kashari ships looked like organic nightmares, all twisted biological architecture and pulsing energy weapons. There were dozens of them, far more than the planetary defenses could handle alone. Zartan's thoughts flowed through the Sentinel systems, and the mech responded, standing smoothly and activating its weapons arrays. Marcus felt every movement as if it were his own body, 30 feet tall and armored in ancient alloy. "They are targeting the palace," Zartan said, her voice calm despite the situation. "They know the Sentinels are here. Stay with me, Marcus. Feel what I feel. Move as I move." The first Kashari ship opened fire and the Sentinel moved. Marcus felt the motion in his bones, a leap that carried them 100 meters, energy shields flaring to deflect incoming fire. Zaratichwan's combat instincts flowed through the link, and Marcus found himself contributing without thinking, his engineer's mind automatically calculating trajectories and structural weaknesses. "There," he thought, spoke through the link. "The ship's left flank. The organic armor is thinner where the weapons pods connect." Zaratichwan didn't question it. The Sentinel's right arm transformed, energy coalescing into a massive blade, and they struck with precision that took Marcus's breath away. The Kashari ship's armor split, and the vessel spiraled away, trailing atmosphere. "Good," Zartan acknowledged. "Again. Focus on their patterns." The battle became a strange dance. Zaratan provided the combat experience, the tactical awareness, the warrior's instinct. Marcus provided analysis, finding weaknesses in enemy formations, calculating optimal firing solutions. Together, they moved through the battle with an efficiency that seemed impossible. And the Sentinel sang. Marcus could feel it, the mech's joy at being whole again, at having two souls working in perfect harmony within its systems. The golden binding marks that had appeared on its chest blazed brighter with each coordinated action. Other Zytharian defense forces rallied around them. Fighters streaked through the air, ground batteries opened fire, and two more Sentinels emerged from the palace complex. But Kythera was brightest of all, moving with a grace and power that made the other pilots stare. A massive Kashari cruiser descended through the clouds, its weapons charging for a devastating strike at the palace. Zartan's determination flared through the link. They had to stop it, no matter the cost. "Wait," Marcus thought. "I have an idea. Trust me." He felt her hesitation, then her acceptance. Marcus reached deeper into the Sentinel systems than he had before, finding the resonance frequency that had first drawn him to this mech. He amplified it, changing the harmonic just slightly, and directed all that energy into a single focused beam. The Sentinel's chest opened and golden light erupted outward, not a weapon, but a pulse of pure resonant energy that struck the cruiser's organic hull. For a moment nothing happened. Then the Kashari ship's entire structure began to vibrate at the wrong frequency. Sections tore apart, biological components failing as the resonance disrupted their cohesion. The cruiser broke apart and fell from the sky in pieces. The remaining Kashari forces, seeing their command ship destroyed in a manner they couldn't understand, retreated. Within minutes, the sky was clear. Zartan brought the Sentinel down gently in the palace courtyard. Around them, Zytharian soldiers and civilians who had witnessed the battle began to gather. As the cockpit opened and Marcus and Zartan emerged, the crowd erupted in cheers. "Guardian!" someone shouted. Others took up the cry. And then, like before, the chanting began. "Groom! Groom! Groom!" Marcus looked at Zartan, whose scales were flushed with colors he was beginning to understand meant pride and satisfaction. "I think they approve." "You fought well," she said. "Better than anyone could have expected for a first battle. The way we moved together. I have never felt Kythera respond like that, not even with my mother." "The Sentinel knew what it was doing when it chose," Marcus replied. "I'm starting to understand that." Zaratuhuan's expression softened. "You said you have 37 days to decide whether to accept the bond. After what happened today, I think the Sentinel has already made its preference clear." "And you?" Marcus asked. "What do you want?" She was quiet for a moment, watching the crowd celebrate their victory. "I want," she said finally, "to see what else we can accomplish together." "You are not what I expected, Marcus-chan. But perhaps that is exactly what we needed." Master Craftsman Velthor approached, his ancient face creased in a rare smile. "The council will be reconvening immediately. That resonance weapon you created, if it can be replicated, it changes everything about how we fight the Kashari." "It can be replicated," Marcus said. "With the right materials and some time. I can teach your engineers the principles. It's just physics and creative problem solving." "Just physics," Velthor repeated, his smile widening. "This is why the Sentinel chose you. You see solutions where we see only tradition and limitation. As the celebration continued around them, Marcus felt something settle in his chest. He had come to Zythar Prime to fix a machine. Instead, he had found purpose, partnership, and possibly the beginning of something he never expected. The war was far from over. The Kashari would return with greater numbers, and the challenges ahead would be enormous. But standing there with Zartan, connected to an ancient mech that had chosen them both, Marcus felt ready for whatever came next. The chanting continued, echoing across the palace grounds. Groom, Groom, Groom. Marcus smiled despite himself. He had 37 days to make his decision official. But in his heart, watching Zartan's scales shimmer with hope and respect, feeling Kythera's contentment through their shared bond, he already knew what his answer would be. Humanity's strength had always been adaptation, finding creative solutions to impossible problems, and building bridges where others saw only barriers. Today Marcus had embodied all of that. He had shown that human ingenuity could save an empire, that courage didn't require scales or generations of warrior tradition, and that sometimes the most important bonds were the ones chosen by forces greater than tradition or expectation. The engineer who had come to fix a broken war machine had instead helped forge an alliance that would change the course of a war. And in doing so, he had discovered that sometimes the greatest adventures began with a simple willingness to reach out and touch the unknown. The Eternal Sentinel stood behind them, blazing with renewed power, a testament to what humans and Zytharians could accomplish together. And this, Marcus knew, was only the beginning.